Hi, this is Steve with HomeStrung Jewelry, and today I'm going to show you how to make these 3 bangle bracelets, which are fun to wear, easy to make, and one or all of them can be put together in just a matter of minutes. Now, it's always satisfying to finish up an elaborate wire wrap project or to do a bead weave that can take you hours or even days, but I find a lot of satisfaction in putting together something just really simple and pretty that I know people will enjoy and want to wear. And that's the case with these 3 bangle bracelets. Now, these particular bangle bracelets use a stringy material, which is one of my favorites. It's memory wire. I think that it's underutilized and it can be used to make just about anything that can be done with wire or thread. Now, the beads in the project today come from our November Gemstone Orphanage Subscription box. But you're not limited to this. You can make these bangle bracelets with any beads that you might have in your studio or in your home or in your stash. And the memory wire which you're going to be using is a bracelet size. It's 0.5 or 0.6 millimeter. Use the thinnest wire that you can find. And we're going to be using gunmetal today, but there's no reason you can't use silver, gold, or whatever other colors you might have. The other thing we're going to be using is some tubing. Now, I love using, plastic tubing for projects with memory wire. And the only requirement is that there needs to be a hole in it that the memory wire can fit through. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. And I love doing this just because of sometimes for the bright colors. But for the projects today, we're going to be using a velvet flocked tubing. This is 3 millimeters. And of course, there's a hole in it which the memory wire will go down into. And then finally, you're just going to need some sort of a clasp. And the clasp I'm using today is one that I make. And if you stick around to the end of the video, we'll show you how to make this clasp. The only real tools that you're going to need is you're going to need a pair of memory wire cutters. Do not use your regular cutters for cutting memory wire. It will destroy them. These are a special cutter that's hardened and designed to cut the hard memory wire. You're also going to need a sturdy pair of round nose pliers to put the ends on it. You're also going to need something to cut the tubing. You can use scissors, or I'm just going to use my flush cutters. And then it doesn't hurt to have some sort of a ruler. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something that you can use to measure the tubing with. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about jewelry math, because in order to get this to work properly and to fit, you're going to have to do a few calculations. You can just wing it, but I'm kind of one of those guys that likes to measure things out a little bit. And the first thing you're going to want to do is take the beads that you're going to be using in the project and lay them out either on a bead mat or onto a bead board, or just string them onto some wire, and you're going to want to measure it. And so you'll want to put this measurement in right underneath the length of the bracelet that you're going to want to make. The bracelets today that I'm making are all 7 inches, which is pretty much an average size for adult wrists in America today. And so you're going to want to measure the beads that you're going to be using as they'll be strung. Next, you want to figure out how much room your clasp and the end is going to take. And using the hook clasp that I've got here, along with the 2 looped ends, we're looking at 3/4 of an inch. And so you're going to want to add that to the beads that are going to be used in here. Finally, you're going to total this up, subtract it from the length of the bracelet, which is 7 inches, and you'll come up with a number. Take this number, divide it in half, and that's going to be how much of the tubing that you're going to need. You're going to need 2 lengths, that's why we're dividing it in half, of the tubing. So in the case of the projects I've got here, just as an example, the star bead here, the beads here in the middle measure 2 3/4 inch. The clasp is 3/4 of an inch. Subtract that from 7 and you get 3.5 inches. Divide that in half, and you're going to want each one of these little tubes to measure 1 3/4 inches. Of course, if you want a bigger bracelet or a smaller bracelet, you're going to adjust your tubing accordingly. And there are other adjustments that you can do as well, which we'll talk about a little later on. Now, our first bangle bracelet is going to use these wonderful mother of pearl rice beads. These are some of my favorite beads to work with. I love mother of pearl. I like anything connected with pearl. And we're going to be using 4 of these from the November bead box. We're also going to be using 5 onyx beads, and then we're going to be using 8 of these wonderful little red crystal triangle beads. I've already pre-measured this, and it comes out to 3 1/4 inches, which means I've cut 2 lengths of the tubing at 1.5 inches. And then at each end of the tubing, I forgot to mention this earlier, we're going to be using these little 3 millimeter cord ends. You can use whatever color you want for this particular project. I've got a set of gunmetal. These have a hole at the end which will fit the memory wire through, and they just fit perfectly over these little cords. In addition to that, we've got a clasp, which is also in gunmetal, and let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to want to do is cut just, probably a little over a loop, let's say 1.5 loops of this bracelet wire. I'm going to use the memory wire cutters for this and just grab hold of it and just go ahead and cut that wire. Now take your round nose pliers and take one end of the memory wire, and we're going to make a loop. And we want a loop that's probably a little over 1/8 of an inch. So I'm grabbing this right near the end of the wire. It's going to be an outside loop. In other words, it's going to go the opposite direction of the bracelet. So we're going to take that, and I just use my thumb and just roll that around. We're about partway through, so I'm going to reposition and finish that loop so that it comes up and it touches. There we go. There's a good loop. Now this is just a simple stringing project. We're going to put one of the cord ends on, facing outward. Going to put a tube on, and we're going to push that into the cord end and just push this on. Go ahead and grab another cord end facing in towards the tubing, and we go ahead and just push that all the way around till it butts up against the loop there. Okay, now as I said, this is just a simple beading project now. So we're going to start out with one of the rounds. This is the black onyx round. Black is always so hard to find the holes. So there's a black round. Put one of the triangles on. There we go. What's going to take the most time for me is probably just finding the holes for these things. And then we're going to put one of the rice beads. Anytime you're working with a long bead and memory wire, because of the curve of the wire, make sure that the bead will go on and move freely on the wire. Now we're just going to follow a simple pattern. We're going to put the triangle bead on. You put on a round. Put another triangle bead. And then we're going to put a rice. And then repeat this again. Triangle. There we go. and a triangle. Put on the rice. Another triangle. Now these have better holes. The onyx. These little onyx beads are 3 millimeters, by the way. Put another red crystal. Put our rice bead on. The crystal. And the round. Let's take these and just run them down. Make sure you get them snug and tight. Make sure that the caps are firmly over the cord. If you don't do this, it'll settle later on and you'll have gaps. You'll be able to see the wire. Okay, we just finish up with an end cap, our tubing, and the final end cap. Make sure you face them in so that they're going to be over the cord. Okay, snug it up. Now we're going to take our memory wire cutters, shake it a little bit, make sure everything is in place. And we're going to cut this memory wire about a 1/2 inch from where it comes out of that final cord end. Take our round nose pliers, grab the end, and another outside loop. Bring it down till it touches the wire. You might have to reposition a couple of times. Okay, got the 2 loops now. Bring your clasp in. Now, one thing I really like about this type of a clasp, using a J-hook clasp, is that they're really easy to, for some person to one hand put it on. But if you're right-handed, you want the loop of the clasp, the loop of the clasp to face your dominant hand, the open end to face the other hand. So if you're right-handed, you want the loop here on the right with the opening over here. And we're just going to take a pair of pliers. I've got round nose, we'll use that. We're going to open this loop a tiny bit. And we'll bring that in. Take your pliers, which round nose are not ideal, but they're what I've got. And so there's your end. We've got the clasp in place, and there's your first bracelet, all ready to be worn. Bracelet number 2. We went ahead and did the measurements on this bracelet, and when all of the beads are strung together, it comes to 2 3/4 inches. And then, of course, the clasp and the ends is another 3/4 of an inch, so it's 3.5 inches. To get a 7-inch bracelet, we're going to need 3.5 inches of the ends, which cut in half is 1 3/4 inches, which I've already cut here. Now the beads we're going to be using along with these cord ends, which this particular one, I've got kind of a shiny copper, which I think looks really sharp. We're going to have, again, some mother of pearl. These are the bone shape or hourglass shape beads. Again, mother of pearl. We're going to use 4 of the black and red half-plated abacus beads. And then we've got 2 of these 3-4 millimeter African bloodstone beads from the box. This is going to be a fun project. Let's go ahead and get going on this one. Again, we're going to cut somewhere around, maybe 1.5 loops from the wire. Wire is cheap. And again, we'll start with our round nose pliers, and we'll put a little loop on the end, an outside loop. I love these heavier round nose pliers for doing this. Even though this is a lightweight memory wire, it still takes a little bit of strength. So let's make our loop. Again, just holding it right near the end, and we'll just turn it part way. Check it, reposition, and finish up the loop so that it touches. It's not quite straight, which is fine, but we can turn it. Even though memory wire is really stiff, you can adjust it a little bit. Okay, once again, we're going to begin with the cord ends. Put a cord end on. Put one of the tubes in. Second cord end. And then we are going to start with one of the African bloodstone rounds. There's the hole. Okay, and we're going to put one of the mother of pearl beads on, and then an abacus bead, crystal abacus. Another one of these wonderful little mother of pearl beads. We do an abacus. This is just so simple, and yet it looks so wonderful and elegant when you're done. Bone bead, abacus bead, bone bead, the last abacus, the last mother of pearl, and then our second African bloodstone. Let's push these around, bring it to the end, make sure the cord ends are firmly over the tubing. Then we just need to put in a cord end, the cord. Can't have an end without the cord. And then put the other cord end in. Make sure the cord is, or the tubing is firmly in there. Give the thing a little shake to make sure all the beads are firmly in place. I'm going to take the memory wire cutter and again cut it about 1/2 inch from the end. Bring in the round nose pliers once again. Grab the end and make your outside loop. Bring it around till it touches. Looks good. We're going to open it up just like a jump ring. Oh, that one's left-handed. There we go. I only bring that up because my wife Debbie mentions it when I get the clasp on backwards and she has a hard time getting it on. Okay. Clasp in place. Second bracelet is done. I get so excited about these bracelets because they just look so good and yet they're so easy to put together. it's kind of fun. All right, let's go on to the third one. Now for the third bracelet. This one, when you string the beads together, it's the same as the one with the bone-shaped mother of pearl. It's 2 3/4 inch. Again, you add 3/4 of an inch for the clasp and the loops on the end, which takes you to 3.5 inches, which leaves us 3.5 inches, for the cord if we're making a 7-inch bracelet. And so I've already pre-cut the two hollow tubes to 1 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to be using silver end caps for this particular one just because I wanted something a little bit different. So we're going to start by cutting the about 1.5 loops of the memory wire. I probably could cut less. And we'll start, same as the others, by doing an outside loop, grabbing a hold of that wire, and just bend that around till it touches, almost there. Now I'm making the loops on these just a little bit bigger than normal because we're actually using one of the loops as the second part of the clasp. You, of course, could use a jump ring if you wanted to. All right, same as before. We start with the cord end, put the hollow tubing on, add another cord end, make sure they're sitting over, the ends are sitting over that, and then let's just start stringing. Oh, didn't mention what the materials are in this. Okay, again, we're using the 3mm onyx rounds, 4mm onyx rounds, excuse me. And it looks like we've got 10 of those. And then we also have these howlite stars. I'm going to be using 2 red and 1 black. And then, of course, we've got our J-hook clasp. All right, and we are going to start with 3 of the onyx rounds. 1, 2, 3. Wow, that was too easy finding the ends on that. Now I'm going to try to keep all these stars lined up the same way. So there's a red star. Then we're going to put 2 of the rounds on. Okay, that one doesn't have a hole. We're going to go over to the next one. It has a hole, I just can't find it. Okay, 1. And we're going to put the black star in. There's the hole. See if the hole in that first one showed up. There it is. Okay, 1, 2, and then the final star. There's 3. We should have 3 of the onyx beads left, so we'll put all 3 of those on. Then we've got our cord ends. 1, the cord, or the tubing, excuse me. The final cord end. Push it all down to the end. Make sure those end caps, cord caps, are in place. take our memory wire cutters and cut about 1/2 inch in. Round nose pliers, outside loop. Make sure it touches, because you don't want that. You don't want your clasp falling off. Okay, we're going to open that up just like a jump ring. And close that loop to secure it. All right, got one left-hander one. There's our third bangle bracelet. Again, this one's kind of fun. Let's bring them all out. And so here we have 3 awesome bangle bracelets made in just minutes. The beauty of memory wire is I didn't need any jump rings. I'm just using loops to finish off the clasp. It's strong, it'll last just about forever. And this was really pretty easy. Now, a couple of tips. If you need to make this longer or shorter, you of course can add beads, or you can add length to the tubing, or remove a little bit of length from the tubing. If after you finish the project, you've got all the loops and everything, if it's too small, you can always add a jump ring or two, to the end. So to make it longer or shorter, you can adjust the number of beads. You can adjust the tubing, which is why I love using tubing to make these bracelets, because it's just so easy to control the length. And then finally, well, not finally, but another way is you can add a little bit of length by adding a jump ring. The one other thing you can do is, since you're making your own clasps, or if you're purchasing a clasp, you can see that this one clasp is just a little bit longer than the other one. I just put a longer shank on that to make the entire bracelet a tiny bit longer. And now if you'd like to learn how to make the clasps that go with the bangle bracelet, all you need to do is click on the link right up here, and it will take you to the tutorial that shows you how to make your own wire clasps. This is Steve signing off. Thanks for coming. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we will see you again soon.